All right, so like I was saying earlier, I forgot to introduce myself, other than just launching into teaching, so you guys can learn a little bit more about me. Um, like I said, so my name is Brody Holyoke. I was born and raised here in Pocatello. I went through this program and graduated actually in 2010. So I left here, went to work at On Semiconductor. I was a maintenance technician for the etch, ash, and e-test areas, which is basically when you're building up a computer chip, there's three main processes that you're doing. You're either depositing something or growing a layer of material, or you're eating it away and removing it. I was eating away the material and removing it in different aspects. Um, After that, I moved into as an e-test engineer, where my job was to actually analyze the chips after they were being made, to probe them and to test them, to make sure that they were working correctly. After that, I decided I really actually enjoyed being a maintenance technician more so than the engineer. So I went back into the maintenance group, just in a different department. And my last place there, I was in our implant, diffusion, and films group, which basically is you take a piece of silicon and you spin it around in a circle so it's moving, and then you take basically an ion gun and take electrons, get them up to the speed of light, and blast them literally into the silicon chip and implant the ions in them. Whether it be just either ions themselves, electrons, or if it was different chemicals, like you take a piece of silicon and you'd bombard it and actually bury boron or chlorine or something like that into the surface of the silicon to give it different electrical properties. So that's where I worked up there until the fall of last year, and then I came down here as the first semester instructor. So this is my third semester teaching. Second year, it's honestly been enjoyable. I've loved doing this a lot more than doing up there. Also, one of the reasons I moved down, came back down to teaching, was it got to the point where I physically couldn't do my job up there. I actually got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So if you guys ever see me hobbling around or if I'm stumbling a little bit, that's why. I promise I'm not drunk. Because there are times when I'm walking around and it looks like, because I'm very unstable, my feet don't want to work. Days like that'll happen. This job's a lot more conducive because I can sit here and still be able to teach and project what I need to on the board, so I can still do my job. But just so you guys are aware, that's what's going on. You don't really need to be too overly concerned, especially if you see me stumble or whatnot, or if I'm using the walls to kind of hold myself steady. That's the reason why, just so you guys are aware. Um, I I actually got part of my bachelor's degree when I graduated from here was I got my teaching credentials to teach this and also be able to teach high school electronics and robotics. And I actually at one point was in line to take that position here at the local high school, but I was not able to do it at that time. So I've had lots of experience teaching. I've been involved in mentoring some of the local robotics clubs. If you guys are aware, how many of you guys are First Robotics alumni or Vex Robotics alumni or anything like that? Okay. So you got First, you were Vex, Vex, Vex. So a lot what we did is we also have another team here that ISU helps sponsor. So there's three teams in ISU. There's a Trio Robotics, there's Haywire Robotics, and there's Livewire Robotics. I was helping out mentoring primarily with Haywire Robotics. I'd been with them for the last 9 years as a mentor. I would go down to the competitions and help them out, and just kind of be with them to help teach them the electronics aspect of things, help them with their programming, bounce ideas off of things like that. It was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. It was one of the highlights of my year was to go down with the high school students at their first robotics competition. And if you've never seen one of those, they are absolutely nuts. Especially some of the bigger competitions. Salt Lake is huge. Boise's getting big. Things like that. And then if the team gets to go to nationals, that's even a whole nother experience. You're talking in one. So when they have it set up, they have like 4 fields. There's 100 teams per field playing the same game, plus all the people in the stands cheering and yelling and screaming like crazy. So it is complete nuts. And every year this game changes, so it's always a new competition. So if you ever see me or hear me talk about robotics, that's probably what I'm talking about. We'll probably watch clips of some previous matches for things like that, just because I think they're really fun, things like that. We have been doing the VEX robotic competition here. We're not going to be doing that this coming spring due to the COVID. There's just too many unknowns right now, and they're unknown about if they're going to be doing their season. So be aware of that. When you guys are in the further semesters, you guys will actually be helping out run the Idaho VEX State Championships. We run it here. It's a whole big event. Last year, I think we had 40 some odd teams show up for the event, and then it was all run and pretty much staffed by you guys. So everybody up through sixth semester. So it's a lot of fun. Also more about me. I'm married 10 years this month to my wife. We've got two little kids. I got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they both have been very much indoctrinated to love robots. I do my best to ingrain that into them every single day. And they're a kick. You'll probably see them around here every once in a while. Sometimes things happen and they kind of hang out in my office during my off hours sometimes. So you'll probably see them around, like I said, and you'll see some of the other families and spouses of the rest of the instructors come and go too. So just so you know, there will be people around. Always around. It seems like in this class, there's always new people. Anything else you guys want to know about me? Okay. Like I said, if you guys do have questions, whatever, feel free. I do like sharing. If you guys see nerdy things that pop up, I'm subscribed to several different newsletters. I've been getting lots of updates and announcements from like the shoot, it just slipped my mind. The robot that they're making, Boston Dynamics. I get updates from them all the time about what their new robot is doing. We'll be watching some of those videos. Tomorrow we'll be discussing a research paper that you guys are going to do for the end of the week, your first big assignment. I promise there's not going to be a lot of writing in this class with that, but we do have a couple of papers and stuff like that. So one of them will be due this weekend. Not very big, but it's a fun way to see what's out there as far as the industry goes. All right, so kind of continuing on with the last little spot in lab. So after you start getting your lab books together, the equipment page you want to do, this is a reference page for you guys. So it needs to be as detailed as you want it with some basics. You need to know, what can my equipment handle? How much is too much? How much voltage is too much? How much frequency is too much? Things like that. So when you get into the equipment section, again, this is another document that's listed above the block. I need to get these merged together. So the idea is you're going to create kind of a map to what your equipment can do. Some of you guys have started working on this. So we have our power supply controls and features. I want you to do one of these for each of the power supplies. One for the DC power supply, one for the AC power supply, and one for your function generator. Okay? Basically go through and ask this. Your information, what kind is it? Who made it? What type of a power supply is it? Is it an alternating current? Is it a direct current? And I'll give you a clue or a hint. The function generator is an AC generator because it changes its output. Okay? And then you don't have to necessarily put the information exactly like this. This is just kind of an idea template to put your information. You want to know, does it have a single voltage supply? If so, what is it? And by single voltage supply, I mean every time you plug into this spot, you're going to get 5 volts. You're going to get 10 volts. You're going to get 12 volts. Things like that. No matter how many times you unplug it, plug it in, you're always going to get that amount. Does it have a variable voltage? If so, what are the ranges? What's its limitations? Is the power supply series capable, parallel capable? Basically, that means is internally, can it be set up to run in series or parallel with another power supply of itself? Which that'll come in handy when we start talking about these different aspects. Is it regulated or unregulated? General rule of thumb, everything we have in the lab is going to be regulated. Unregulated starts fires. And you guys will actually be building power supplies at the end of the semester, which are unregulated. Just so you know. Does it have a current control? What is the maximum output voltage of your signal? So it couldn't, depending on what it is, if it's AC, DC, 5 volts, 10 volts, or it can go up to 30 on some of them. Did you have a question? Okay. I just saw movement. And then the number of output terminals. Basically, like I said, this is trying to give you and I guys an idea, what can my equipment do? And then any kind of controls, switches, what's their function? How do I get into the option? With the oscilloscope, I want to look at the difference between a DC signal and an AC signal. There's options to be able to do that. Like I said, with the oscilloscopes, you can turn those on. You can punch the buttons, get into the menus. You're not going to do anything to damage the oscilloscopes with nothing hooked up to them by punching buttons on those. Power supplies, on the other hand, those ones you can, because some of those, once you turn them on, it starts putting out power out to the terminals. So just be aware of those. And the oscilloscope, if you do put something in as far as the setting goes, we can always default it back to factory startups, and that usually erases a lot of the mistakes and issues that people create when they're measuring their waveforms. When we get into the AC, I will go into more detail about how to work the oscilloscope. Until then, it's kind of learn it on your own until we're going to use it later. They are fun controls, or fun devices. You could do everything you need to do with an oscilloscope instead of your meter if you wanted to. So it is possible to take DC measurements and everything with that now. Questions about power supplies? Also, one thing on there, what type of a signal does it send out? Does it have the option for others? Your function generator has options besides just a regular standard AC sine wave. Your digital multimeter. So this is when you start getting out whichever one you're going to use. If you get one with the kit, or if you bring your own, buy your own, things like that. Not all DMMs are created equal. In fact, none of them are. There are different things. You could have a difference between the one you get in the kit versus a $1,500 fluke. Okay, flukes are kind of the top of the line that we use, that some people have. The difference being, a fluke has accuracy down to 10,000ths of a volt. If you want it that accurate, it will give it to you that accurate. Other ones, you're going to be lucky if you get 100th of a volt, and then even then, it's not going to be that accurate. Some of them are going to have better frequency ranges. So most of the DMMs that you guys get, they're going to cap out at about 500 or 600 volt, or 5 to 600 hertz of AC. Once you get over that, those DMMs stop working as well. So some of our circuits, we're running 2000 hertz. You hook your scope up there, you hook your DMM up there, you're going to get two different readings. And the one you want to go with is mostly with your scope, because your DMM can't handle those frequencies. And that a lot of DMMs, that's kind of the range, is about 5 to 600 hertz, and then they start losing their accuracy. And then basically, what can your meter read? Can you measure DC power? Can you measure analog power? Can you measure digital pulses? Can you measure frequencies? Is it battery power? Am I going to have another cord that I have to have plugged in? Things like that, all just to be aware of what am I using as we go. Ranges. If I put, which ranges do I have? Is it an automatic selecting one? Can I manually select a certain range? Because sometimes you need that. You don't want it to be jumping around. You want to be able to get into the finest resolution to dial something into 0. But where you do an automatic, it's going to show 0, but it could still have 20 or 30 milliamps. 20 or 30 milliamps could be the difference between detecting a signal from space, like a UFO, or not. Just as an idea of how accurate we need to get. Also, can it measure, what kind of components can it measure? Can it measure capacitors, resistors, inductors? Again, not all DMMs are created equal. Find out what you have. The oscilloscope. Basically, these are the features that you want to know if it has. These will be explained in the book. Can it do a single trace? Does it have dual trace? Does it have a triggered sweep? What are its vertical controls? Which probe types does it have? Can you change your horizontal? These are all things that you can use to shift the picture around so you can get the best view of how you want to look at the information. And that'll be important. And then, like I said, draw some of the pictures, the buttons. Give yourself a good diagram of how it works, because that's going to be one of the best ways for you guys to learn how it works, is by drawing it and be like, well, what happens when I push this button? What happens when I push this button? What am I getting into? Type of a thing. It's the same with your guys' calculators. Whichever calculators you have, that was another question that was brought up, what type of one we need. Really, any scientific calculator will work. The two examples I have that I use, and I go back and forth between whichever one I happen to grab that day, I have a TI 36X Pro, works great, does everything that we need it to do for this class. It gets into exponents, it gets into engineering notation, it has pi, it has imaginary numbers, it has complex numbers. I also have a TI 83. TI 84s work, TI 89s work. You don't want to go too much more power than that on the TIs, just because once we start getting into there, we've had problems with people programming their computer to solve the entire circuit for them and not, it's great to check your answers, but you're not learning it. And that's the whole idea, is we're trying to get you to learn how do these circuits work, not necessarily this is the right answer. I want you guys to have why does this work and where does this number come from. I'll tell you, I have some stuff programmed on my calculator just so I can get the right answer really quick while you guys are telling me how to get to that value. So just so you're aware. Any questions about calculators? If it's one of these two calculators, I can usually help point you the right direction as far as what buttons you have to hit to get it to do the function. Otherwise, download the manual onto your computer and have it handy, or print it off and have it on hand. I have the manual for this guy printed out on my computer and then a hard copy in my desk. And then this one I have the little instruction booklet that came with it. I'm still constantly looking up functions for these, how to get it to display an answer how I want it to. Should be. Like I said, most things that'll do scientific notation will do sine, cosine, tangent, and have some sort of an exponent type thing in there where you can put in values, things like that. That's what you want to be looking for a calculator. All right. That takes care of lab. Honestly, when we get into lab tomorrow, you guys should be able to hit the ground running. If you do have questions, like I said, feel free to come ask. This way, I think that way we can make sure everybody's on the same page when we hit tomorrow morning. Yes? If at all possible, yes. Obviously, with some of the equipment stuff, you can't do until you're looking right at it. Unless you have that information already, you can look at the manuals online. But generally, yes, and especially where the season that we're in, it is going to be so imperative that you guys do your calculations and all your writing at home as much as possible before you come into class. Because that way you can use your lab time to build the circuit, to take your measurements that you already have your calculations for, and that way you can best utilize the limited amount of lab time we have this semester. So yes, if you can, do as much writing at home as possible before you come into the lab. Get all your pre-calculations done. Like literally you come in, you have it all calculated out. I know I should get these values. Plug your circuit in, measure it. Oh, I don't get that. Let's troubleshoot it. Okay, here it is. And then you can just go through the lab. It's honestly, that is going to be one of your biggest time savers and ways to stay ahead and stay on top of things is to do your calculations and writing at home and not be doing your writing in lab, just because there's such a limited window that we have, even more so than semesters past. Good question though. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. Theory. Now we get into the fun stuff. Oh, one other thing, this is for lab, this is your schematic symbols. These are the basics ones that we kind of use, just kind of give you an idea of what's out there. Here is a resource already that has everything labeled for you. Basically ways to do it, some breadboarding, circuit boards, how to trace those wires. This is another good document to look over. Okay, so for theory, same type of thing. We're going to be meeting every day of the week from 1 to 2:50. Again, if you guys need to stay late or whatever, I'm usually here till 5. I usually hang out in the classroom for a little bit after class anyway. We usually run a little bit long. You guys are free to go between 2:50 and 3 o'clock if you need to. That's just fine. I'm not going to hold it against you, even if I'm still lecturing. I'll come back and cover the other stuff afterwards. That is the end time of our class. And I don't believe we have anybody right behind us. If you need help, or if you just need a place to sit and write labs or whatever, you can stay in this classroom and do it after 3 o'clock. Because like I said, I don't think there's anybody else in here. I will be here if you need to have questions for that. Those are my office hours. So Between 11 and 1 most days, I'll be in my office if I'm here, and then after school till about 5, I'll be in my office as well. Also, like I said, you can reach me via email, text, that kind of stuff. Same thing for where my office is, my phone number. The books that we have is the Fundamental Circuits and the Math book. And I did not bring those in. But they are, these are very good resource books to have. They are the heart and soul of what we're learning about. We will have some readings as far as what we're going to be covering that day. Please read those chapters, look over those chapters at least when you come in. That way, if you have questions, we can go from there. And then I can also make sure you guys get the information that you need out of those books. A lot of the examples from that book we've converted and moved over into Moodle. So the answers and questions or stuff are going to be there. They may not necessarily say this comes from question 3 in the book, but that's where a lot of these practice problems and style of questions have come from, is from those books. They are a great resource if you have questions as far as getting a little more in depth with some of these ideas and topics. The other supplies you need, some sort of a notebook. The engineering notebook works fine. Engineering paper, just because it has nice lines to draw schematics on to try and keep things straight. When you're making columns and lists and answers, you can keep everything lined up pretty well. Your scientific calculator, like I said, the TI-30X is recommended. I got this 36, I got the 83. You know, if you have questions, please feel free and ask. Pens and pencils, whatever you want to use to take notes. Colored pencils is a good idea, because there will be times when we will be doing doing a circuit, and we'll have 4 different things going on at the same time. We'll have resistance values, we have voltage values, we have current values, and we have power. Keeping track of all that information, there's a lot of numbers. If you color code your notes, it makes it a lot easier to go back and look at what you're doing. Plus, it helps isolate when you're trying to find a specific answer. So, colored pencils are a good idea. Dry erase markers, if you want. We can't share our dry erase markers anymore. That's one of the college rules. We do have whiteboards up here if you guys would like to use. So you just, kind of take notes as you're going real quick, where you're going to be changing values in and out type of a thing. We do have some boards available for use. This is basically the same goals as we have in lab, but the idea behind this is you will be able to understand and calculate real-life circuits and applications of circuits before you go test them in lab, and have ideas of how things are supposed to work. What can I design to get what I want? Because that's the real question, is I have this idea, it's floating around here, I need to get it into something that I can actually use, like a sensor for a door. How do I build a sensor to tell me when a door opens and closes? Because in industry, that's important. You need to know when something's present or something's not present, because you don't want, if you're making a pie, you want to make sure there's a pie crust ready to go before you put in the filling. Because if there's no crust and you just dump the filling, now your whole line is just covered in crap. And this has happened to a buddy of mine. He worked over at Amy's Kitchen. They had a problem. One of their sensors wasn't working, and it dumped food everywhere. They said that it shut down their line for most of the day to clean it. It was a mess. And all it was the sensor had gotten unplugged. So it wasn't giving the right signals. The topics we're going to cover. Again, electricity, series parallel circuits, conductors, insulators, series parallel, voltage, current dividers, batteries, power supplies, Ohm's law, Kirchhoff's law, a lot of the same stuff that we're doing in theory or in lab. This is just the theory, the application behind, the information behind what we're going to be doing. Grading. 60% of your grade will be based on tests. Okay? There will be 6 tests. I think 7 tests and a final. I got to look back exactly the number. Your final test is going to be worth 10% of your grade by itself. Each week we will have a test based on the topic. There will be some questions and quizzes you have to answer. So in-class tests are worth 60%. Homeworks and quizzes are worth 15% of your grade. Your final is worth 10%. And then again, your professionalism is worth another 15% of your grade. For the professionalism, the standards on that are very similar to that in lab. You demonstrate a good attitude. They're positive when taking on challenges, and they encourage those around them. Students work well with others. They communicate well. They're encouraging and helpful to others. They always follow instructions, versus occasionally require some additional prompting or generally unwilling or unable to follow instructions. Basically, if you have to be reminded constantly to stay on task, that's where you're kind of getting dinged for points on that. You put in the time and effort. When you get called on in class, because it's going to happen, to answer questions about the circuits, you're able to do it. You know, whether it be the quizzes or the homework the night before, problems that I assigned, or what we're working on currently. And honestly, if you're working hard and you're just maybe not quite grasping the concept, or you're not quite there getting the answer, you're still working on it, I don't know right now, or I need a little bit more time, are acceptable answers. If you're working on it, obviously, if I can look at you and I know that you're not working the problem, if you're playing Candy Crush, obviously you're not, ready to answer that question, and probably will be called on more often. It happens. I do have some creative ways to pick on you guys for answering questions, and honestly, they make me happy, so that's why I do it. You can ask some of the second semester students and the third semester students. I have a spinning wheel of death with everybody's names on it. It makes a lot of noise. It's a lot of fun for me, watching everybody going, please don't let it land on my name. Basically, are you professional? Are you trying to work as an example? And again, hygiene, is your appearance typical of a casual environment? Are you showing up in clothes that are just completely ripped to shreds? I mean, granted, if you got in a fight with a mountain lion on the way to class and your clothes are completely shredded up, I'm not going to dock you for that, but just be aware. Yeah. I make a lot of dumb jokes in this class, just so you know. Courtesy laughs are appreciated, but. Okay, so that's with the survey. Also, one of the things I forgot to mention on this last little bit, our program is committed to all students learning. Okay, if you have a disability or something, if you think you have a disability, if you need extra time, if you struggle to read, if you're dyslexic, okay, things like that, please, 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 please go talk to our Disability Resource Center. They're over in the Rendezvous building, I believe. They have a whole office set up. They can help you out, get you accommodations you need. I mean, it could be something as simply as you struggle with reading on a computer, you need double time on a test. You struggle with dyslexia, I can make sure the numbers are bigger, spread apart, things like that. But if I don't know about it, I can't help you. Okay? Same with anything related to COVID, to being sick, anything like that. If you have any kind of issues or illnesses, give them a call. These guys are the ones to go through to get any kind of accommodations for anything. If you need those, go talk to them, and they will let me know what we need to do to help you guys succeed. Because again, this is about you. I want you guys to succeed. I want you to move on. I want you guys to get the big paying jobs that this program has to offer. I want that. But if I don't know you have a problem, I can't do anything for it really after the fact. So get those talked about. They're very good. It's confidential. I won't even know you guys went and talked to them until they let me know that I need to make accommodations. And like I said, it could just be something as simple as they need more time on the test. That's easy for me to do. I can go in and make those accommodations. Okay. Again, this was added this year. Please follow all the signs for social distancing. Please follow ISU's policies for the COVID-19, for social distancing, face masks. They are required. I have to say that. Things like that. Just be aware of that. It's going to be this entire semester and probably next semester that we have these accommodations that we have to make. It's going to be here for a while. No food no food is allowed in the computers. No food is allowed in the classroom. Obviously not in the computers. Drinks are allowed. But if you make a mess, please clean it up. If you knock over your soda, I'm not going to yell at you. Run to the bathroom, get some paper towels, get it cleaned up. I don't care. Just make sure it gets done. Follow the links in Moodle to access the student handbook. And then we have something really fun. Every Friday, we have something that we like to call Fancy Friday. Now what this is an opportunity for you guys, first of all, to earn bonus points on the week's test. Okay? Show up to class as if you were going to a job interview. This is borderline acceptable. Collared shirt, nice pants, things like that. Some job interviews, this is what you would wear to go to a job interview. I don't expect you to be fully dressed up to the nines in a suit and tie. I don't expect you to wear an evening gown. Okay? Guys or gals, I don't care. If you guys want to show up in an evening gown, go for it. But just in general, show up as if you were going to a job interview. Okay? It's a way to earn points. You can earn 2 percentage points for your test. So it's another way to kind of help push your grade up a little bit. If you are not here, can't earn those points. Sorry, unless there's other options. This week we're going to have a little bit different as well because we are also doing our papers and kind of a presentation about a potential job that you would like to get. So basically, every Friday, that's the standard, is dress as if you were to go to a job interview, dress nice, and sometimes there will be other requirements. So there'll be like an either or option. Like one time I know we're going to be doing like a Hawaiian shirt day. So you can either dress up as you're going to an interview or dress up in a Hawaiian shirt. Come Christmas time, end of the year, we're going to have an ugly sweater day. Show up in an ugly sweater, you'll get your bonus points. So it's just kind of something, like I said, to get you guys used to wearing some of the fancier clothes, like for interviews and things like that, stuff that maybe you don't wear on a day-to-day basis. It will help, I promise. You'll get comfortable, because there's nothing worse than going into an interview and being uncomfortable in the clothes you're wearing. Yes?
Are you going to do anything particular for Halloween?
Yes. Yes. Last year we had a lot of fun, so yes, we did do something for Halloween. Like I said, so Fancy Fridays, every Friday, dress if you're going to an interview, or there may be another option that week, just depending, and they kind of change, and they're kind of at my whim and mercy, so just fair warning. The lectures are going to be recorded. They're going to be uploaded to YouTube and to Moodle. I'll give you those links. You can either follow the YouTube channel I have. It's just set up under my ISU account. My email, also on Moodle, all the links will be posted there as well. But YouTube's going to host those videos, so I don't have to worry about the space for them. Attendance is still required, but obviously if you have some problems, please let me know. Even if it's something as simple as somebody in your family or friends got diagnosed with COVID and you were possibly exposed to it, and so you're self-quarantining, things like that. I'm not going to count you absent as long as you're viewing the videos and doing the work. Okay? There are options. Like I said, anything you need, especially that, talk to the Disability Center too. Let them know what's going on and make sure we have accommodations in place for you. Yes? I'm going to try and get them up by 5. Sometimes it takes time for YouTube to actually upload them, get them going. So, but I'll get them linked. If not, they should be uploaded and then linked, and then they might take a little bit to process. So hopefully that day they're ready to go. If they're not working, let me know. Like I said, we can make arrangements as needed if you're not here. And same statement here as in lab. The syllabus may change, but if it does, I will let you know. So if I decide to change, hey, in-class tests are now we're 70%, you guys will be notified of that by email, and I'll let you know in class. So this is kind of the golden rule of our class. This is where kind of a lot of the default information is going to be related to. Any questions? Okay. As new students, ISU College of Tech loves to keep track of you guys. They use it for the promotion material as far as job postings. They do it to keep track of you guys because they care about you. They want to see how you're doing in the future. They want to see how you get, in school. They want to be able to use you as, look at this student. They did, the high honor students, look at them, this is the type of job. But also look, here's a student who was average, depending on the situation, and they still got a very good paying job because they went through these programs. So they will be contacting you periodically, asking for job updates, just to keep an eye and to keep updated on their stats based on what you guys are doing. So with that, they have asked us to send out this new college student survey. I have taken the forms and digitized them because I'm trying to cut down on as much paper and interaction as possible. Whether or not they want this is how they're going to get their information from me. The link for this is on the Moodle page. So we come up here, we go into theory, And we are right here, the new student survey. Please try and complete those tonight if at all possible. Get these done as soon as we can. It's just a simple series of questions. What's your name? What's your birth year? What high school did you come from? What college of tech program are you from? This is just a generic form they send to everybody. So hopefully if this works well, I'm going to just give this form to them and they can use it so they don't have to redesign it. Basically, do you live in the Pocatello area prior to here? If not, where did you go? And then it goes on to ask more questions. How did you hear about the College of Tech? Select all of them that'll apply. Why did you choose to come here? Have you seen any advertising? You know, click on those. I think I need to change that, but anyway, that's what the form is. Then when you're done, it submits. I'll get the information and I'll get it over to the College of Tech. They are actively and they are curious about how the College of Tech is perceived out in the community, not just in the Pocatello area, but the whole surrounding area. We draw students in from all over. We have California, we have Utah, we have Colorado, we have some even from back east as well come to this program. They want to know how best to reach people that can benefit. So please take that. It is not required, but highly encouraged to complete this. Obviously, if you do not want to, I'm not going to make you do it. All right. Okay, so now we're going to get into the kind of the meat of theory. I don't think we're going to get into a whole lot of lecturing as far as material, but I wanted to go over this again to make sure you guys understand where everything is in Moodle. So you guys, you know, come the day before the test, you're like, oh crap, the test will unlock. What do I need to do? Okay. So to get going, we have the handbook, we got the survey forms, then we have a syllabus quiz. That's going to go through and basically make sure you guys understand attendance policy, grading, that kind of stuff. You have to get 100% on this test to be able to unlock the rest of the weeks. So in this thing, all this information up on the top is just kind of general information that you need to do, things you have to do first to be able to get everything else to unlock. This general class forum, I don't tend to use this a whole lot. I usually end up using text or emails more to communicate. If you guys prefer this method, we can post stuff here, questions. Either way, we can also do a Google Hangouts group that if you guys have homework questions, you can post on there, and that way anybody can answer and help each other out. That's kind of the idea too, is everybody can help everybody when we have a question. Either way. So you have your student handbook acknowledgement forms, that kind of stuff. Extra credit. Everybody always wants to know, what can I do to get extra credit in this class? Okay. Ham radio license. 5% onto your test total for getting your technician license. That's the first level. If you get your general, we bump it up to 10%. If you get your extra, bump it up to 15%. Basically, submit proof of eligibility here, scan in a copy of your license, submit it. Boom, extra credit. We are also working on something I've been wanting to do is I've been wanting to teach a class on the ham radio license itself, at least the technician class. Hopefully that's something we can get rolling soon, and if you guys are interested, we'll let you know when that starts up, if and when we can get it going. Student organization activities. This involves any of the clubs on campus. Doesn't have to be just on ISU in the College of Tech. We have the electronics club. We have the robotics club just for us. On lower campus, depending on what you're interested in, there are a couple of fraternities to join. There are several organizations. There's an engineering one, there's math ones, there's chess clubs, there's glee clubs, there's dance clubs, there's sign language clubs, there's Korean clubs, there's Japanese clubs. Whatever you guys want, there's usually a club. I can help you find more information as far as what clubs are on ISU. There's so many to list. There's even a board game club. They meet they used to meet like every Fridays, and they would go to the sub and they would play board games for hours. And they had stacks of board games that the club had bought that they would bring in that anybody could play. So there's many, many options for those. Basically, all you have to do for this is there's a form on here. What organization is it? What semester? Your name? Active participation. Basically, you're participating in their events, things like that. Give a description of what it is. You have the club president sign it, scan it in, turn it in. That's extra credit towards your test. Okay? We want you guys involved in campus. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit harder with how things are going right now with COVID, but there are still some opportunities to participate in student activities. All right, let's see. Attendance is something I will be taking, so you guys won't even see this. This has everything on it, so even things that you guys don't see, it's under my name. But basically what it is this will be blocked out. You won't be able to access it until you complete your student handbook forms. You won't be able to get into week 1 until you have your syllabus quiz completed. So now, the meat and potatoes of what we have is each of the weeks is listed out here. Week 1, we're going to be talking about Ohm's law and decimal basics, meaning the decimal number system. August 17th to August 21st. Each of these are broken up into the sections. So we have an analysis, we have supporting math, and we have our communication. The analysis section, this is where a lot of the electronics portion is going to be. So the actual resistors, capacitors, circuits, things like that, that's where this is going to go. Math, this is the supporting math that we have to know to be able to do some of the theory calculations. You have to understand how to count to 10 before you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. You have to understand how exponents work before you can start using logarithms, things like that. So they're going to build on each other. This one is a PDF icon. That's just a document. This has the color code. This has a cheat sheet for Ohm's law, things like that. I would highly recommend you take this, print it out. It's going to come in handy. You can print stuff over, I believe, still over in the Rendezvous building, any of the computer labs down in the Student Union building. You log in with your ISU account, and then I'm not sure how many pages you get for free. I want to say it's like $25 worth of printing. A black and white page is like 5 cents a page or something like that. At least that's what it has been in the past. So there are places you can print for free, and you basically just get charged to your account. The biggest parts here is anything that has a page with a check mark in it. These are your homeworks. So for the week, there's actually quite a few. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quizzes to take. This is your guys' homework that you're going to do and turn in. These quizzes, you can have unlimited attempts on these things. Okay? You get the highest grade that you earn. You get an 80 one time, you get an 85 the next time, you get a 70 the next time, you get that 85. You get the highest grade that you achieve. So it is possible on your quizzes to get 100% on everything. Okay? So for example, section 1, terminology. We're in Floyd chapter 1, 2, and 3. So in your Floyd book, this is where the terms are going to come from. Here's a question. An instrument used to measure voltage. An ammeter, a voltmeter, an electron, a conductor, or an insulator. What would you guys guess right off the bat? A voltmeter. Okay? We'll just say finish this, and we'll submit it. Ta-da! We got a 6.67%, or points out of 100. So for one question, it caught this. But now we'll be able to go back through. They're not always going to be the same questions. Some of these they may be, but they're going to be in different orders, things like that. It will give you, you can go back through and retry the topic that we're discussing, especially with some of the analysis circuits. There's 40 or 50 different questions that you could get. So odds are you're not going to get the same question more than once. So that's how quizzes work. And the reason we do that and we give you the chances is because, again, you need to understand this material before you take the test. Because if you don't understand the quizzes, you're going to fail the test. Just plain and simple. Okay? So these are broken up. These are the quizzes you have to do. These are the different videos. So some of these are videos that I've done previously. I will add another section in here for that week's videos. And I will try and label them as such as what day, and I'll try and include at least a description in YouTube about what they are. So the check mark boxes are the ones you have to complete. Communication. So this is what we're talking about, and we'll talk about this again more tomorrow. But this is where your Fancy Friday or your muddiest moments are. And we'll, like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. this is where you're going to turn in those informations. Fancy Friday, this will be the options of what's available. I will assign points after the day's over. I'll keep track. And then the last section, so we don't have our first test until next week. You're going to be tested on the previous week's material. Okay? So week 1, we're not going to have a test. Week 2, we will have a test that'll be due at the end of the week. So with that being said, this test, so Theory 2 test, will not unlock unless you have passed, which passing is an 80% or higher on the quiz. So you can stop at an 80% and be able to take the test on all the quizzes. So you have to have these tests passed with an 80% to take this test. The test will then close Sunday night of that week at midnight. That means if you start at 11:55, you have 5 minutes to take that test. Fair warning. There is an extra credit option available, which is usually more problems. This is open as long as the test is open. Once the test closes, the extra credit shuts down. This extra bonus, or this time bonus credit, comes in if you get this test completed by Friday at midnight. So basically, if you're done by Friday of the week, you can earn 5% bonus on your test. Later on down the semester, there is options to earn 1% on your final. So there's plenty of options, but you have to go in and complete these activities. So if you go in and let's say on week 2, you got your test done by Friday at midnight, you come in here. If it's available, you can go in and you can select it, and you basically follow the prompts that says, type in yes to get credit for this. And then you do that and it'll automatically give you the credit. If you don't mark the extra credit option when it's available, you don't get it. Fair enough? Okay. That's all I have for today. That is pretty much everything you need to know. Tomorrow we will start in on theory. Okay.
How long will he be there to sell the kit?
He'll be up there through probably till 3 or 4 today, or actually till 4 or 5 today, I think. If not, we can get him the next day, or if we need to make special arrangements too, let me know and I can help.